I made a simulation and I needed to finish it up. Instead of making these objects visible, invisible after the spaceship leaves, which I could do in Second Life with script, I want them to actually travel with the spaceship, so I made a tool to make that happen. And I needed to do that instead of using simulations because I want to add constraints to pull them along. And you can't do that with simulated objects. They have their own constraints. Now, I've messed around with this for many days and I couldn't find a solution, so I had to build one. And I'll show you how it works. I'm going to select one of my objects here. I have to select them all actually. I have to find their target. I made a target that they follow right here, and this has a force that pulls them in to the spaceship, and that won't be visible in SL. I won't include that, but I do need to use it in order to make my tool work because they're gonna stick to that target. Once they're inside the ship, you won't see them do that, but they will follow the ship. So I'm going to do that now as soon as my items are exposed again, and I can click them all. Okay, so now I'll select my items, and I want to select the path. Marquee select everything, and then shift click the target to make it active, make that the active object. I don't want these things to be selected. Control and click that. But these rings are coming from this target here, so that's fine. The rings aren't actually part of the selection, that's just that I have the target selected. So now all of these objects are going to be copied except for the target, and then those copies will be attached by constraints to the originals. Then the originals will be hidden, and then the active object will become the target. And these are the constraints that it will put onto the object, and with an influence indicated here. I do want it to start off at 0 because I don't want my sim to change. I want the constraints to be a 1 where the proxy is being controlled by the simulation. And you can choose what you want here, but this seems to be the most logical choice. And I will action this, start my sim over, see what happens. Okay, now I have to find out what frame I want this to transition from. It's doing the same thing, nothing has changed, but now I have control over it to make a change. And it looks to me like around frame maybe 299. Alright, so I'm going to go backwards. Don't do that. I'm going to go back to frame 1, or the beginning of my animation. I can collapse that. And any one of these, I can select any one of them, but they're all selected at this point. But I can select just one of them if I want to. I'm going to keyframe this because I want a 0 influence. I don't want to affect my animation at all until I get to frame 299. Then I will keep that segment of 0, and on frame 300 I'll pump that up to 1 and key that. Now that's not enough. I need to do the same thing with those controllers that are attached to the simulation. I need to release those so that they stay where they are. So I'll do the same thing here. I'll go back to frame 1, or the beginning of my animation. I'll key the full effect. Then on frame 299, I'll do the same thing. And the transition happens during a single frame. 300, bring those all the way down. And I should be ready to go. So let's play that out and see what happens. The beans should stay in the ship and follow with it. So they do. Now that I have my full animation the way I want it, I need to go back to my simulator tool and use it normally. And I'll do that right now. Simulator. I need to make sure that all the objects that I want to export into Second Life are selected. And it will not be this doohickey here, so I can hide that again. And that's one of my forces. So I'm going to select all of my objects. I know that these are going to be selected. I want the door and the spaceship. I want my candy bag, and marquee select all the stuff inside it. I'm going to play my simulation one more time just to make sure it's working. It is still simulated, but these are proxies now. These beans are all proxies. I'll let it play out. Okay, now I'll action my simulator to put the bones into it. But I make sure we have a map. I want to make sure safe, no sim set. Alright, I have to do a simulation first. Action, so I put my bones in there. And then put safe bones. And it's 3434, so it's showing me if I have any left over. I could choose volume bones and attach bones if I have any left over. Now that I have the rig selected for convenience, I'll bake the animation into the sim, and I'll play it one last time. It probably won't work right. Yeah, they'll all fly away because the constraints are still attached. But these bones are moving in the right place. You see, all the bones are going where they belong, and that's all that's important. The objects really aren't important at this point. So I will export my animation. I have the rig selected. It'll generate a snap rig until it's done exporting. Then I'm going to select all of my objects that I want to export and do a quick export of the mesh. And that's done. Now I'm going to show how this works in Second Life, and then I'll reset my stuff backwards. I can keep my sim objects on this if I want to, and I can unhide the actual simulator objects and affect those. And if there's any interest in that, I'll make another video sometime. So let me know. Let's go to Second Life and work this out. Okay, so I left my cube in here from previous tests because I have it set as transparent. Upload my animation, and I'll drop that in here, and I'll drop my my script in, and this comes with Bento Buddy. Upload my mesh, and there's also a new tool in that simulator that combines all the objects if you ask it to, and I'll just briefly point that out before I close out this video. It's engaged by default, so you don't have to think about it, but it saves a whole lot of time uploading and some expense. Shift click my cube to link it. That's the anchor, and I already have animation engaged, and as usual, leave a fresh copy behind and click that. Now my beans are jumping around. get exactly what I see in Blender. And they take off with a ship. I'll go back into Blender and point out that tool. Okay, so the tool is join objects on export, and I'm telling it how many objects per mesh, and that's 109 because we only get 110 bones per mesh, not per intermesh, but per mesh. But sometimes SL misses a count and it only gives us 109. There are rare occasions where it will only take 108, but this is a safe bet here, 109, and it will just combine all the objects together until it gets to 109, then start a new round. So you might end up with one object of 109 parts that were joined together and another object with, well, whatever remains. And so it's just a convenience tool. That's it.